Welcome into the Bears Squad Show. I'm Joe George, post-game host. And did Ryan Poles do enough at the deadline, or do you wish he did a little bit more?
Hey guys, Taylor Dahl here, host of Making Monsters. We got a little bit of dad drama on Twitter with James Odunze. We'll talk about that.
Bear down, Chicago. It's the Bears Squad. Everything Chicago Bears, every week. Covering all the big hits and game-changing plays from the Windy City. The way only the Locked On Podcast Network can. From Soldier Field to the next great chapter, the Bears Squad Show starts now.
Welcome into the Bears Squad Show here on the Locked On Bears YouTube channel. Just me, Joe George, and Taylor Dahl here with you for the next hour. And well, we've got a lot to talk about because today was NFL trade deadline day, a wild day in the NFL. We'll kind of hit on that after we get our thoughts on what the Bears did and did not do at the deadline. We'll talk about James Odunze firing some shots on Twitter, what it means. A little surprise yesterday after a big win for the Bears over the weekend. We'll talk about what we saw from Kyle Monungai, Caleb Williams, Colson Loveland, and then we'll preview the Giants game coming up this weekend. But Taylor, the Bears make one move today. Pulling up my notes here, okay? Just because I cannot pronounce this guy's name. Joe Tryon Shoyinka of the Cleveland Browns is now a member of the Bears. So this move, it's not splashy. Frankly, he hasn't played a lot this year. He's not really an impactful player. But coming off the news that Dio Dangbo is going to be out for the year, and who knows how long into next season with it being an Achilles injury, this did feel like it was a necessary move for me. Like, you have to add a body with the amount of injuries this team has faced. So with that point of the deal, like, while I'm not excited about the player, I think it's a wise move that Ryan Poles made.
Yeah, I mean, I'm fine with it. I think everybody, when you get to this point and it's the trade deadline, you want to make that big splash. Okay, this player is going to impact your team for the future. And Ryan Poles did that, I think, with Montez Sweat when it came to that. And right away, it worked. It looks like there was a little bit of a slump. And now it looks like Montez Sweat is kind of going back to some of the things that you feel like he is good at when getting those pressures and kind of creating, even if it's not sacks directly, just making the quarterback have to rethink some decisions, and that makes them have to hurry the ball and things like that. I don't know. We talked about Trey Hendrickson. That was obviously the name. Max Crosby are the two names that people are probably talking about the most that would make the biggest impact immediately at the edge position. You are going to pretty much mortgage your future to get one of those two guys, and I just don't feel like Ryan Poles is in the mindset where that is the best choice right now. And I know a lot of people are not the biggest Ryan Poles fans, and they feel like maybe that does drastically change things. But I think he played it smart, a little safe. I even think, honestly, and I read a stat earlier I'm just going to call him Joe because I'm not even going to try to say all of that yet. But I want to say, only had 13 snaps at edge this year and had 3 or 4 pressures during that time. So even in a small limited role with the Browns, we know the Browns defense, he was a backup there because they have a lot of studs up there at the front. That's something that they're not too worried about. Previous years, when he was in Tampa, especially, he played a little bit bigger of a role. And 2 of those years, Tampa were really good defenses, the top 5 defenses those 2 years he was there. Not saying it was him. There was a lot of names on that, Devin White and Vita Veas and those type of guys, but he played a role on that defense at the time. And so to me, you more look at it like that, like, okay, a team who had a really good top tier defense during that time, a team that I want to say was the Super Bowl year, which the defense was talked about a ton. He was a role player on that defense, and they kept him there for those 2 years to make sure that he could play the part. And so I think you do look at it like that. If good teams, organizational teams are wanting a player like that on their roster, then it's somebody that you can at least look for in that. I mean, are we counting on him coming in and having 2-3 sacks right away and in the first game? I don't think so. But I think that, to your point, Dio getting hurt, you really have to figure something out. And I do feel like the Dio thing didn't work out in general when it comes to paying him and his production on the field, and then he gets hurt. So you have to find something that you feel like you aren't mortgaging your future for right now.
Yeah, I think the Bears have a pass rusher problem. Like, we all know it. It's very obvious. I'm with you. Montez Sweat, his last 3 games, like, if you look at the numbers, pressure rate, sacks, all that, like, it's up. It looks like it's turning a corner for him a little bit. So, like, but if you're going to solve this problem, to me, it's an offseason problem. I mean, Trey Hendrickson, his deal was reworked, to get paid this year. So he's going to be out on the open market. And You just look at what happened in the NFL today. I mean, that Quinnen Williams would be an awesome Bear, but
Yeah.
a first and a second round pick with where the Bears stand today, to me, is not something I wanted to see Ryan Poles go and do. Like, would I have liked a more impactful player than JTS or Joe, whatever we want to call him? Like, yes. But did I want Ryan Poles to trade another second round pick when Montez Sweat's been okay and Chase Claypool is one of the worst trades ever? No, like I didn't want to see that today. I didn't want to trade a first and a second for Quinnen Williams. So, it's disappointing, of course, because like you always want your team to do a little bit more. And like I have some envy of what these other teams do, of what the Colts did today, trading for Sauce Gardner. But at the same time, I think it works out. And right before we went live, Jordan Schultz reported that the Bears were among the teams having conversations with the New York Jets in terms of trading for Jermaine Johnson. A second round pick is what the Jets wanted. I'm really glad Ryan Poles didn't make that trade. I like the player a lot, but he's coming off an Achilles injury still like a year and a half ago. So I think this is overall like it's a good day for Ryan Poles to not just go all in on a season in which 10 wins might not make the playoffs.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think a lot of those players that you would need a first and second round pick to get those. And I think when you're doing that, the Bears aren't in that spot right now to be able to do that. I don't think. I mean, I feel like the Colts giving up 2 for Sauce Gardner, they're 7-2, and they really do feel like they're maybe that player away from really making that run. I don't know if the Bears fully feel like that. There's too many injuries. Otherwise, I don't know if a pass rusher immediately fixes all your problems. And also, as much as people want to complain about some of the stuff that Ryan Poles has done, his first, second, and third rounds has been really good. He's hit on the majority of the players, if not all of them, that he's drafted in those 3 rounds. So keep those picks so we can draft high quality players like a Darnell Wright and a Odunze and a Caleb Williams, and even the glimpses of Luther Burden that we've seen, Kyler Gordon's and Jaquan Briskers. I can continue.
Yeah, the only other thing for me today, just I would have liked to see a very similar trade. Another one happened for the cornerback position.
Yeah.
Like CJ Gardner-Johnson, we can talk about him here in a second, what his first game with the Bears, but like I still feel like you need help on the outside. Like as you wait for Kyler Gordon to come back again, Tyreek Stevenson was obviously a little limited in this last game, but you don't know when Jalen Johnson is going to come back. And I would have liked a flyer on a corner too. Yeah. Like you take a flyer on a pass rusher, like who's had some numbers in the past and like you said, like was on some good teams and was a little like, behind in depth there in Cleveland. Like I would have liked to see a similar move happen at corner just because I think you still need it. Like Nahshon Wright's not it. He has moments that are good and moments that are disaster. So that to me is like really my only complaint about the Bears today. It's like I would like to see trade another 7th round pick or a 6th for a 5th and a player, something like that. Besides that, was there anything else you wanted to see Ryan do today or any of the trades you're glad he avoided that we saw happen across the NFL?
Yeah, I think it's funny because how quickly a week can change things, because a week ago we were saying you've got to go get a running back. Breece Hall's out there. Why aren't you going to trade for Breece Hall? And then Kyle Monangai has the game he did this last week, and those talks kind of simmer down a little bit. And then you go back and maybe 3-4 weeks ago, we were like, all right, you've got to figure out something on offensive line because this isn't working. And now the 4 when it comes to Tooney and Jackson and obviously Darnell Wright, the 4 outside of left tackle have played really, really well, including Drew Dahlman. They've all gotten better every single game. Theo Benedette is probably the outlier, and I'm putting this in quotes as weakest link, but he's actually played really well, and he's a very physical player. I know the clip going around right now with him just shoving the guy into the sideline. It's fantastic. That's what I want to see. So those conversations have simmered down too. And so the running back and the obviously offensive line were 2 things that we talked about heavily early on. I think we still are going to talk about, I would even say maybe interior defensive lineman. And you mentioned Quinnen Williams in that conversation. You're paying high dollar for one of those guys, but the D line in general and the corner, I definitely would have hoped that those were addressed in more than one little band-aid, just because I think that we saw what the Bengals offense just did to some of those secondary pieces. And I do think that and we'll get into more of CJ, some of these things that they've done recently have helped a little bit. Austin Booker coming back and having the game he did this last week, not saying it was just absolute domination, but he gets a sack. He's, creating, just wreaking some havoc up there. Maybe they think that's enough for now, and just replacing Dio is enough. And Dennis Allen believes that. Dennis Allen gets his guy in CJ Gardner-Johnson. And so I do think that you always hope that there's some more fixes because we don't, I mean, Kyler comes back even when he does it. How long? Because he just came back and he got re-injured. And so we don't know about Jalen. Jalen just did the whole video that he posted recently that, since he's gotten injured and what's that looked like. And if nobody's watched it, go back and, go over and watch it on Jalen Johnson's page. He's been posting it, but who knows what that looks like. If you lose another guy, if Tyreek is hurt and banged up and misses some time, then you're really scraping into the trenches to get some corner play.
True Pilgrim here, 144 in the chat says Asante Samuel Jr. is still out there. Yeah, he is been cleared. He's going to be working out with the Packers, it looks like, actually. But that's a name that I was thinking of too. Like, I mean, like
CJ he's the one that just had the fusion, like the neck, the spine fusion or whatever.
Yeah, and like he's played good football in his career. Like, and if anything, like what does it cost you if you cost you a couple pennies? It's not my money. George McCaskey looked pretty happy this last weekend to get the win. So, take a flyer on someone like that, I think is a wise suggestion there. Because I think CJ Gardner-Johnson, like for his first game, you could tell he was huffing and puffing a little bit early on in the game. But I mean, it's a bad stat. But when they pointed out that he had as many pressures as the rest of your defensive line did early in this game, but he gets a sack on the quarterback. He puts pretty good coverage, and I think he played well for his first game with the Bears. So, I do think, I don't expect the world of CJ Gardner-Johnson to fully replace Kyler, but I'm curious what you thought about his performance in this game and just kind of how you feel about now that we've seen it one game in action.
Yeah, I was impressed. I am not the biggest CJ Gardner-Johnson fan just because of the human element side of it. I've seen too many things like that I don't like, but I see he's one of the players that even in the last couple of years when he wasn't playing his best football, you're still like, oh, CJ Gardner-Johnson's on that team. Like you got to watch out for that. And it does also take time. I think it's funny how you get like that midweek trade and then all of a sudden they're playing Sunday. And to make impactful plays the way he did that quickly, granted, he is familiar with Dennis Allen's defense. So there is something to that of having that familiarity, I'm sure helps. But I just watched it in Jacksonville a few weeks ago when they traded for Greg Newsome. He got cooked that game. And I was actually against the Bengals. And everybody was like, oh, well, he wasn't ready to play yet on Sunday because he didn't get to get used to this defensive scheme. And the communication in the secondary is so important. So I think that you have to give him credit for the way that he played just because it was so quick of a turnaround of, okay, you're playing this Sunday in a very pivotal role, by the way, in nickel corner and Dennis Allen's defense.
Yeah, I think it's good. Like, it's a good first step. And like, whether it's the next, 3 weeks or until, Kyler Gordon comes back or something we've talked about before on this show, like, is there Kyler Gordon playing on the outside until Jalen Johnson returns? Like, what does it look like? It gives the Bears some flexibility, and obviously it didn't help a ton. I mean, this game was crazy. I didn't see any post-game videos from you though. Like, what was as this game's unfolding? Because I've seen them before. I saw one of the field. I think it was the Washington game you posted. Someone took of you, and I know you said you're not ever going to take a video of yourself again watching it because it ended badly last year in Washington. But that game again, like a couple days removed, like when Lauren and I were doing the post-game show together, like I could not like really grasp still like what happened in the moment. I rewatched the replay of the game. I kind of skipped forward to like the fourth quarter. I can't believe the Bears won that game still. Like a couple days removed, it's still hard to fathom that they found a way to win that game on Sunday.
Yeah, it's hard to fathom they almost found a way to lose that game, and then they found a way to win that game. And that's what I felt like Bears of the past, no way they're winning that. Bears of last year, they're not winning that game. It's a heartbreaker at the end, and it's one of the situations where you're watching everything unravel in slow motion like we did so many times last year, or just sitting there, what just happened like on Thanksgiving last year. And this, I've already, and I think I've said this early on in probably the first 3 weeks where I was like, it just feels different. And I think that's my confidence in Ben Johnson and also Caleb Williams this year. I don't know if he gets enough credit of the 4 of the 6 games he's led the Bears back in final minutes to win in some form or fashion, whether it's a long run from him, a long touchdown. He's just made plays to get the Bears, and not where things just don't crumble at the end like they had previous years. But yeah, it was definitely a very up and down moment. I know it was funny because my boyfriend made a comment and he was like, it was when it was the 41-27. And he goes, "Oh, you guys got this in the bag. I knew you would cook them." And I literally was like, "Shut up." Like there's so much time left. And he was like, "No, there's not." And I'm like, "Have you watched Bears football in the last few years in the final minutes?" And I was like, even going back a few years ago when it was the Denver game that they blew, and I think they were up like 20 with 6 minutes or something. And I was like, you never speak those words. And then he was like, "No way." So then they score and he was like, "That's okay. It's, it's still, you're good. You're good." And then the onside kick happened and he was just like silent sitting there. And I was like, this is what I'm talking about. Don't speak until the game is over. I also do kind of hate that rule. That's a side note really quick, because I get it on the onside. Like it can't touch the player, but I feel like I get that if it's intentional, like if the player is bending down to get the ball and it bounces off of them or whatever the case may be, but he was clearly just trying to make a play and it bounced into him. I don't totally love that. But then like I said, then you go down and you're watching Caleb Williams, and this is the most chaotic few moments and then just calmness. And that's what I think you saw from Caleb on that drive, where you were like, okay, this is either going to be absolute chaos or it's going to be Caleb just totally locking in. And when you get there and you're watching it, and it is like his feet are calm, which we've seen the moments where his feet just go crazy when he starts getting antsy and there's too much going on. There was calmness in everything that was happening in that last couple plays right before the Colston. And I was like, maybe they can pull this out. But I was more so thinking get to field goal range, just kick a field goal and go on from there. And then Colston did the rest. So that was very fun to see. But our party went from craziness, screaming, yelling, happy, to onside happened to like silence, nobody talking. And then there was one of the guys, I was like, "Come on, guys, it's Caleb. He's brought us back this year already. He's going to do it again." And we were all like, okay, like we got it. And then it happened. So
yeah,
it happens like that.
Yeah, I think it's a great point. Like this team's 3-5 with Matt Eberflus at best as the head coach. And like even it's funny you mentioned the Broncos. Like for the first thing I think of when you said that, like wasn't last year. It was, I don't know, a decade ago at this point, as Marion Barber going out of bounds, and then Tim Tebow leading them back down, like leading the Broncos down the field to beat the Bears. Like it just
heartbreaks.
Yeah, it's like you're so used to it. So it's nice to have three already this year. Do you feel like Bears luck's running a little thin? Like it feels like it's running a little thin for like this year. I feel like we're using the good luck already for this season.
And it's funny because a couple weeks ago we were talking about that, and Lauren was saying the same thing. This team is this close to being opposite. Right now they're technically could be 2-6 or whatever. I'm trying to remember what we're at. Yeah, 2-6. And so it's that close to that, but it's also that close to not being, like, you go back to that Vikings game and, Darnell Wright doesn't get called for that phantom holding call, or they don't get the PI on Naylor. And right there, you win the Vikings game. And then, so it's like, I think both ways, this team, the difference is so many people talk about 1-score games and being lucky. To me, good teams, good, well-coached teams. And I'm not saying the Bears are amazing. There's obviously things they've got to get fixed, but well-coached teams win the 1-score games. That's when you look at the 1-score records of coaches, it's guys like Shanahan and Sean McVay and Andy Reid. And all those guys are sitting at the top of that list for those records because they find ways to win the close games. And the Bears finally doing that, to me, is refreshing. Now I need to start seeing some more where you got those gaps. I want some more Dallas games, and maybe not even so drastic, but give me some 10-point wins coming up and make me build a little confidence in me and the team.
All right. Trade deadline was today. We discussed what the Bears did. There's a certain gentleman on Twitter that wanted the Bears to do something else. James Odunze put a tweet out there. Yes, that's Rome's father. That currently, as I look at it, has 11 million views on it. We'll discuss that next here on the Bears Squad Show. Today's episode is brought to you by BILT. Nobody likes paying rent, but if you must, you might as well get something for it. That's where BILT comes in. BILT is changing the game by turning your rent payment into real rewards you can actually use. When you pay rent through BILT, you can earn flexible points that can be redeemed towards hundreds of hotels and airlines, a future rent payment, your next Lyft ride, and more. But BILT isn't just about rent. It's about rewarding you around your entire neighborhood. BILT has made everyday life feel more rewarding, from your neighborhood to your travel plans. Turn your rent into rewards and start earning points around your neighborhood by going to joinbilt.com/lockedonnfl. That's joinbilt.com/lockedonnfl. Make sure you use that link so that they know that we sent you. All right. So on October 19th, 2025, a gentleman on Twitter, I think, named Rick Marty 12 tweeted, "Can the Bears trade Rome Odunze to a team that will actually throw to him?" Yesterday, James Odunze, or Monday, he put a pin in that tweet. He put the little pin emoji up there. It's got 11 million views. It's caused some chaos, Taylor, amongst Bears fans, and there's a lot to get into. Well, what's your thoughts when you saw it at first?
Yeah, number one, if I was a player, I would so quickly be like, Dad, please stop, because this isn't doing anything to you. Everything it's doing is affecting me. This is how quickly fan bases start to turn on a player when the parents start saying stuff like this. And even this, I love Rome Odunze. I'm the leader of the Rome Odunze club, and I have been since before the Bears drafted him. But it hasn't been perfect. I mean, we just saw him drop a touchdown on Sunday, and there's been a couple of those now. There's been a couple on the sideline. There's been a couple midfield. There's definitely still some improvement that he can make, but he has the most receptions on the team. He has the most yards on the team as a wide receiver. And you're just like, I'm a little confused where this is coming from. If I was Rome, I would just be like, Dad, you've got to stop. The only person this is hurting is you, because a lot of people, or is me, because a lot of people are big Rome fans. I personally, and I don't know if you're different than that, every Bears fan I've seen on Twitter or talked to in the real world or whatever the case may be, love Rome Odunze, and they're stoked that Rome Odunze is on the team. But then Dad posts this, and then now you go look at the comments and you see screenshots of his drop touchdowns and screenshots of the sideline drops, and then you see the stats posted of how many receptions he has in yards and da-da-da. And I'm surprised it's still up, honestly. But it just, I don't like the involvement in that sense, because I just think you're hurting the player. You're hurting your son in this. And it's somebody who the fan base really does actually love.
Yeah, it's interesting, because part of my concern with why it's still up is that it means Rome. And look, this is why it's bad to tweet these things if you're a family member, is that I kind of have to jump to the conclusion that Rome kind of endorses it a little bit. That if the fact that it's still up there, because it's also interesting, like when you go through all of his tweets, like there's one interaction about Caleb's body language after the tip pass and then the drop, where James Odunze is tweeting defense of Caleb Williams, that Caleb's upset about it being tipped, not about Rome not being able to secure the catch. Like he's intentionally tweeting a way to make it so like it's not a shot at Caleb Williams. Yeah. It's a shot at Ben Johnson for not getting him the ball quickly. One of the tweets he put out there that he retweeted was that, Rome Odunze's targets on, time for less than 2.5 seconds to throw. So he's not getting the easy plays. It's insinuating that Caleb's the one finding Rome on the big play. So that's my biggest concern, is that since it's not gone and it's continuing, is that Rome does feel some type of way about the way that he's being used right now. And well, we know wide receivers, like wide receivers kind of traditionally are a little more diva-y. I don't think it helps that he was also talking and tweeting about Marvin Harrison Sr. Standing up for the lack of balls that Marvin Harrison Jr. is getting. And then, well, he has the most targets he's ever had in an NFL game on Monday Night Football against the Cowboys. So, it validated everything that Sr. was saying about Marvin Harrison Jr. So that's my biggest concern, is that the fact that it's still up is like, does Rome agree with it at all at this point?
So it's funny because James Odunze, he retweeted one of my tweets not long ago, and it was my video of pre-draft saying why I wanted Rome Odunze, why I thought Rome, in my eyes, and I know people still think I'm crazy, but I did want him over Marvin Harrison Jr. and Malik Neighbors. And in the video, I was going on for why, and I was like, he has the best contested catch rate in college football. He can run deep routes. He can, he does the 50-50 stuff, but then he can also get midfield. He's not afraid to hit that contact. So I'm going through all of this. James Odunze repost that. So he has moments where he's definitely just defending his son, like my son deserves to, he's one of the best wide receivers in the league. And so I do want to say, Brendan, and I feel bad because I always say his last name, but he works for Bears Wire.
Shugru.
Yes.
Shugru. You're right.
Yeah, Shugru. So he had Rome Odunze on his podcast, and he just posted, I saw this right before we went live. And so he had this conversation with Rome, and this was Rome's quote about it. Honestly, I feel like I'm a great option on any given play, and I feel like my talents and abilities continue to display that. But at the end of the day, it's a team game. I want the wide receiver corps and the offense to eat as a whole. So I think I can facilitate facilitate that, but I'm an advocate for the plan that they put together each and every week. That to me is, and maybe it's players speak just trying to like say, yeah, I'm a team guy. But I think Rome wants to win. And I don't know if I haven't gotten the vibes, at least on the field. And usually you see the body language if it's a wide receiver that's pouting because they're not getting the ball. Also, there was 3 targets that weren't caught to him on Sunday. So it's like, maybe you do want more, but I don't see Rome being the type of player that is like throwing tantrums because he's not getting the football. I think he really is good with the Ben Johnson plan and how that looks. Now, do you get frustrated as a football player if you're not making plays or even able to make the plays, especially how the season started for him? It was the guy. And it's just so funny because I was reading posts a couple weeks ago and everyone's like, then he needs to stop throwing to Rome so much because he needs to take the check down sometimes and da-da-da. And then now it's like, oh, he's not throwing to Rome enough. And I'm like, can we relax? Like the best thing about Ben Johnson and the amount of weapons that the Bears have right now is you don't have to force feed any one wide receiver. You have different guys stepping up every week. And I think not many teams can say that right now, that if you take out the number 1 wide receiver, you have 4 others that can catch the ball and make plays.
Yeah, and so that's where like it kind of feels like the Caleb Williams conversation in a way where it just feels like no matter what Caleb does, people don't like it, right? Like he's not running enough. He's not throwing deep enough. He's missing the checkdowns. That one's fair. But like it always feels like it just changes every week. And like depending on the broadcaster, like I think like Adam Archuleta said like 30 times on the broadcast that Caleb Williams could have run for 10 to 15 yards, which is not possible. But he said every single time he left the pocket.
And that's where he thinks he's that fast, but
I guess so. But like every time I'm like, dude, like he's not going to get 10 to 15 every time. And with Rome, like I think the drops, like it's contested. Like they're not drops like we're seeing from like Brian Thomas Jr. a little bit this year, who I know you cover in Jacksonville. Like they're contested drops. I do think like there's some validity to this, and just the fact that some of the easy button throws that you would want to see Caleb make, I would like to see Rome get more of those targets. Like while I don't think it's necessary to tweet this because Rome leads the team in targets, I think he still leads the team in touchdown receptions at this point this year. Like I would like to see going forward a more of an emphasis to get him the ball more often. But I feel the same way about DJ Moore. Like I feel like there's still more to be had with Rome, Colson Loveland, and DJ Moore. Like they all deserve more targets at this point in the season.
Yeah, and I think that I've been seeing a lot of the comments talking about, someone said, Vicky, SJ said, I don't see Rome's father tweets being a reflection of him, but just a reflection of his dad's love and pride in his amazing kid. And I honestly, my mind does go there because I picture myself, I don't have kids, but I always joke that I feel bad for my future son or daughter if they play sports because I'll be screaming and yelling, and not at them, but just at people. And if someone's mean to them, I know how I can get. I'm like the way I defend like Odunze and Caleb. Imagine if it was my kid. So I totally get that sometimes he is probably, as in James Odunze, is probably seeing some, he sees these types of tweets and he's probably seeing other people like, oh, why isn't Rome getting the ball more? And he probably truly does feel like that because he thinks his son is the best wide receiver on the team and should be getting a lot of this stuff. So I do think that it's not meant to be like vicious, but the problem is when you pull in trade talks to a team that number 1 has a winning record and there doesn't seem to be any divisiveness between QB and wide receiver. It honestly seems like Caleb and Rome are like BFFs right now. That causes tension unnecessarily, and that's where the problem comes in.
Yeah, and again, I think because he's kind of defending Caleb in it does help. Like it's more of a reflection of the coaching because you don't want Caleb and Rome to ever feel some type of way against each other. Because like if the Bears are going to reach their ceiling with Caleb Williams as their quarterback, like I'm with you. I think Rome's the guy. I think Rome is the guy that helps take you there as a wide receiver. And I do think a lot of this too, like when you look at some of the other stuff he was retweeting and commenting on, I do think it's in defense of the drops conversation. Like, while I think it's fair, like I can see why he would want to be so defensive of it. Like, it's your kid. Like you want to defend it. It's odd timing coming off a win, but Rome Odunze had 3 targets. Only 2 of them came from Caleb Williams. 1 of them came from Cole Kmet. So like I get it at the same time. So now I'm expecting I'm playing the over on whatever targets is for Rome Odunze this weekend. It could be 10.5 and I'm going to play it. But my last point on this though, I'll say is, and this is not to discredit Rome at all. And I don't want to I'm not trying to bash Caleb here either. I also don't know if I want Caleb Williams specifically with the mindset of I'm going to throw it to Rome Odunze 15 times a game.
Yeah.
I think that's where we're going to see Caleb Williams, with what we've seen from him so far, make some really critical mistakes. Like if he's locked in on Rome, he's not developed enough for me as a quarterback to say, okay, I can lock in, but I can also go elsewhere if it's not there. Like, I just feel like it's going to lead to like pick sixes, unfortunately, if he locks in that way. So that's where I hope Caleb doesn't hear this and see this and think, okay, I got to get Rome the ball. Like, no, you got to go through your progressions, go through the Ben Johnson offense. Don't overdo it. It's fun to think of like, could Rome Odunze get 23 targets in a game like Jamar Chase? Yeah. But like, it's also not realistic.
Yeah. And that's it. I that's why I think when I was seeing the comments about people being like, he doesn't always have to throw to Rome. I wish he wasn't throwing to Rome so much. I think that's what people mean. They don't want the Rome Caleb connection to go away. They just don't want it to be a situation where it's like, this is the only wide receiver he has any connection with. It's his first read every time. And if Rome doesn't work, things collapse, or he's forcing balls that shouldn't be thrown. And so I do think that's been something we've seen Caleb get better at, is going through those progressions and trying to look for some other things. That's why guys like Zacchaeus is getting the ball a little bit more, and people are like, why is this happening? And it's not DJ. It's because the game plan from Ben Johnson, it opens up so many opportunities for different types of wide receivers, different parts of the field. And he doesn't want Caleb to get locked in on one guy. And I think that's really smart of Ben Johnson to do, because he could say, hey, Rome's your Jamar, throw it down the field and he'll be there. But then that eliminates so many of the fun things that makes this offense.
All right, there's one more roster thing that after this game this last weekend that I don't love, that hasn't changed yet. We'll get into that next, and we'll take a look back at what we saw from Caleb Williams, Kyle Monangai, and Colston Loveland. We'll get to that next year on the Bears Squad Show.
The Locked On Bears podcast is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. We're all enjoying the NFL season so far, but the NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you missed the start of the game, or you want to ride that hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you could even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps everything exciting, especially when your team is the one making that late push. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So go to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA.
All right, so CJ Gardner-Johnson in. They trade for a defensive end today, the Bears do. And I'm still left wondering, Taylor, why is Cairo Santos still on this team? I'm a little surprised. Like, it doesn't mean that there's not time for changes between today and Sunday when they play the Giants, but it was something that after this game this last weekend where I was like, I think I'm officially ready for a change at the kicker position, because when Lauren and I were talking about the post-game show, he brought up that you could always trust Santos 45 and in. Like, it was always good to go. That's no longer the case. Like, he misses a field goal, they get a break because one of the Bengals players is offsides. It's just not consistent enough from him right now. So I was kind of hoping for a kicker change this week. I think I'm going to be on the outside looking in of that happening. But I'm just, were you hoping for the same, or are you still kind of a believer in Santos?
Yeah, honestly, even before this last game, I kind of was like, keep Jake Moody. I mean, the guy was on this roll. He felt comfortable out there. And I love Cairo as a person. And I think that Cairo's done good things. When you talk about, he was at one point, I don't know if it still is, the most accurate kicker in the NFL was the stat, but it was just that number over the 50 that he really couldn't hit. The problem is that can't even be the case anymore. You just saw a kicker and Cam Little hit a 70-yard field goal, and we can't trust a guy to kick a 50 right now. It's just, at this point, it's not working. And I feel like you have to make some sort of change, because in moments like that now, several times throughout the season, those field goals make big differences. And I think that when you're a team who is kind of not you haven't hit your ceiling, you're trying to climb and find some momentum. The defense is beat up, so you're trying to get away around it. Every point matters in those games. And even going back to the Vikings game, I'm pretty sure he missed one in that, because I remember going back and being like, you make a field goal and even that game is different. And so it's just unacceptable at this point. You can't miss a 48-yard field goal. You can't miss a 52-yard field goal, and especially with how badly they're being missed too. And everybody knows, I think it was the Packers who kind of exposed them last year of his trajectory is really low on his longer kicks, and now everybody sees that. So anytime he's beyond 50, it's getting tipped, and it just can't keep happening. I feel bad for Cairo, because I feel like inside of that, if you were just like, you only have to kick like 40-yard field goals, it'd be great, but you can't promise that in the NFL, and you have kickers making way longer ones throughout the league.
Yeah, and so even it's kind of like the defensive end situation. I guess if they don't address it now, like, it is what it is, but I think it's something like this offseason, like, you have to address it. And frankly, Richard Hightower might be, on the chopping block here a little bit too, because, and we've talked about special teams, and the last thing before we get to the good stuff from this last game, that was the other one, just collectively. Overall, I mean, the amount of times the kickoff return touchdown from Charlie Jones, the next possession, the Bengals get the ball on the 45-yard line. We saw that in the Raiders game this year that nearly cost the Bears. Like, the special teams unit is just failing pretty frequently at kickoff return. And you're not getting it good on the other side either. Like, Devin Duvernay, like, to me, he looks slow. Like, it's not the guy like we've seen in the NFL play for the Ravens before. It hasn't been great in any of the special team stuff. And somehow it hasn't bit the Bears yet, which is shocking, because it's worked in their favor at times this year, where it's game-winning field goals or blocked field goals. It just feels like special teams is the one unit that actually needs to improve the most, I feel like, at this point in the season.
Yeah, and I remember probably like 4 or 5 weeks ago I said that, and I was saying that was the one coach you retained. So I was like, I was very surprised at how poorly the special teams has played, and that on all levels. I do think that we've seen a little bit better punting than maybe it was early on. Not what people probably expected when you draft a punter that high with Torrey Taylor, obviously, but I do think that you've seen some better punts. But I just feel like, especially with the amount that a lot of times he's having to punt, but I do think that when you are talking about missed tackles, I was getting so frustrated watching this game on Sunday when it was in the return game, nobody could tackle anybody. And you talk about, obviously, the touchdown, that's one thing, but every other return, I felt like at least 2 guys were missing tackles and people were just running straight through them. And I haven't looked at the number average, but Bears have to be at the top, towards the top of most allowed, because I feel like every time somebody's starting between the 40 and 50, and you can't expect realistically for a defense who's struggling and hurt. And so we put a lot on the defense and criticize them, but also, I mean, they're having to stop somebody who's already almost in field goal range by the time that they're starting.
All right, so let's look back at this weekend a little bit. So we'll start with Kyle Monangai and kind of how to handle that going forward. 176 rushing yards. He was awesome in this game, just moving bodies, hard to take down. I mean, even early in the game, there was one hit he took where it was pretty gnarly, but he pops right back up, and he's just given the punishment the rest of the game. Was really impressed rewatching the game, and while I'm really excited about Kyle Monangai, I almost just got more excited about what does it look like overall, because it felt like, okay, think back to Ben Johnson that first year in Detroit and what it looked like with Jamal Williams and DeAndre Swift. And it was a great 1-2 punch. And yeah, they moved on from both those guys for David Montgomery and for Jahmyr Gibbs the following season. But I think that you now have a real case for Swift's carries are going to come down and Monangai's are going to go up. And it feels like, to me, Taylor, the Bears can have a legit 1-2 punch the rest of the season running the football because of what the offensive line's doing.
Yeah, and I'm totally here for that. I think that you see the way the Lions offense runs with that and how well it worked for Ben Johnson. So if he can bring even a portion of that to Chicago, then it's something that you get excited to see. And I think Kyle Monangai needed this game because we needed to see, he had tiny little flashes throughout the beginning of the season, but everyone kept saying like, okay, well, it was only here or there. And I'm like, okay, well, you got to give him some touches for him to really start breaking out. And then that's what happened. And there were so many plays. You mentioned a few of him just bulldozing guys, but his vision on the outside sometimes, when there wasn't like almost creating lanes. There was one of the plays I retweeted earlier. He was carrying the defender on his back for like 4 yards. And I was like, oh, this is just so, the C's were falling off his helmet. I don't know if you saw that, but literally the C's were falling off his helmet. He was running so hard. That's the type of runner that you need in Chicago. That's the type of runner that, yes, I'm not saying just like Swift, you're done, because I do think that there's certain things that Swift does really well. But now that Ben Johnson knows that Monangai can run that hard and that heavy and create so many things in the middle, you can kind of game plan and be like, all right, we have both these backs that can do a little bit of different things, a little bit of overlapping things. We see the whole conversation was, okay, DeAndre Swift maybe in the receiving game. We saw Kyle Monangai go right into that and catch some passes too when it was needed, especially later in the game. So I thought that was probably my favorite thing from this last Sunday, honestly, aside from pulling out a win at the end, was watching Kyle Monangai and how he was running. And I did a podcast on him after the Bears drafted him with the Rutgers running backs coach, Tamir Shaw, and he said a billion good things about him. And we talk about the running and how he never fumbled in college. That's one thing about him too. His ball security is fantastic. So that's something that you look at. But he just talked about the person, and he was like, he's the same guy no matter what. He's the same guy if you're winning or if you're losing, or if he has 1 carry or 25 carries, it's going to be, that's the type of Kyle Monangai you get. And I think we've seen that early on. I mean, it was a 7th round pick that has just very quickly started shining light on what he could look like in the NFL. And I think it's been really fun.
Yeah, I don't think it's, like he's the number one guy going forward, whether it's this year or next year. But I think it brings in, a dynamic of having that second running back at worst, going forward. And I think it's a good point too about just like running in Chicago. Like we all know, like running backs like DeAndre Swift, like they do not play well in December when it's 2 degrees outside, or when you're at Lambeau in December. Like you have to have like that bruising running back there as well, like late in the season. So it was really exciting. Like I'm really curious, like if Swift is back this weekend, just what that looks like. And then we saw Colston Loveland kind of break out in this one.
And who got the touchdown, their first touchdown?
Britton Brooks?
Yeah. I was like, yeah. I was like, this is amazing.
That's wrong. I think that's wrong. I think
Britton,
it's Britton Brown.
Brown, yes.
Well,
yes.
See, I cover the Texans. They have a guy named British Brooks.
Okay.
So I've got a Britton Brown and a British Brooks in my life, and I'm going to get confused all the time. One scores touchdowns, one does not. That's what I have to remember. Yes. But Colston Loveland played great as well. I mean, he took a big pop on that first touchdown, but I loved how he just didn't move on the big hit there. And then he obviously has the game-winning one. We'll see what Cole Kmet's status is this weekend, but, kind of like Monangai, I'm hoping that, sorry, James Odunze, this leads to a lot more targets for Colston Loveland as well.
Not what James wants to hear, but yeah, I mean, this is why you drafted him. And that was the first thing that the tweets you saw immediately was like, ha, this is why we, Tyler Warren, people that have been going crazy. That's why, because Colston did stuff like that. And I think he's just one of those guys where it's almost, even the commentators said it, where they're like, he's almost just a big receiver. And after that being said, he gets just that final play shows that he can also do the tight end other things. He doesn't just catch the ball well. So I do think that was one of the question marks about Colston was, can he do the blocking side of things? Can he be that more physical tight end that you may need in certain in midfield situations? That game showed he can. And so he can catch the ball, he can do the receiving side, but then now you could do that. But it will be interesting moving forward because they were using so much 11 personnel for a while, and I wasn't sure. Both were a little banged up at times throughout the season. So was it that? But if Kmet comes back and he's healthy, how much can they lean into that 12 personnel and see both those tight ends out there? I think it could be fun to see both of them.
Yeah, I agree. And no false starts this week for Colston Loveland. So that's a positive as well for him. And then let's hit on Caleb Williams here for a little bit before we go to break and preview the Giants game. I mean, obviously, an incredible game, a record-breaking game. First player ever with 20 receiving yards and 50 rushing yards and that many passing yards. It was a great day for Caleb Williams. Like, I think it's really, interesting. I think you have to, as a Bears fan, take a little bit of a breather when you hear these announcers talking about Caleb, because like Archuleta point out every single time someone's open in the flat. And there's one throw he made to Kyle Monangai that was terrible. The throw to Cole Kmet wasn't great. Like some of the easier stuff, like he is missing, but constantly going through like, well, this guy's open in the flat and this guy's open in the flat, like go to your check down. And the fact that Caleb never looks there ever, I'm starting to think these guys have no idea what offense Ben Johnson is running at this point. Or Caleb Williams is terrible.
Just has no idea what he's doing.
Like it's one of the two. Like he's either terrible at it or it's like it's not supposed to happen in that way, in that progression order. So, but he was incredible in this game. And it was, it's the Bengals, yes, for both Monungai and Caleb, but this is exactly what they were supposed to do. They checked all the boxes. They played great. Caleb didn't put the ball in harm's way. He made the big throws when he needed to. He ran well in this one. So I thought he was just fantastic in this last game.
Yeah, I think that there's so many things when it comes to Caleb Williams. And when you go back to, let's say, the end of last year into this year, the criticism last year were those deep balls. And for whatever reason, which was odd to me because I knew he could throw, he had great deep passes in college. So I was confused as why that wasn't clicking last year. And that was one of the biggest criticisms, that and holding the ball too long. So then you get into this season and you're like, all right, he's not holding the ball like he was. He's not taking sacks like he was last year. Those deep passes have looked a lot better. There's still some moments where you're like, all right, that definitely needs to be a little bit more on target. But compared to what they were looking like last year, that's gotten better. But then it was funny because last year, the deep passes struggled so much, but he did all the intermediate stuff really well. I think he had the highest completion percentage, like between 5 and 15 yards or something last year. Like he was really good at doing those things. And everyone's like, okay, but what happened to his deep ball? And then now it's almost kind of like reversed where you kind of do want to see some of that when you talk about the flat or just in general, not having to launch it down the field and make these big plays. Some of those settle down a little bit because I do think he just gets feet, like happy feet. And that's when the balls sail or just aren't really, the timing's a little off, whatever the case may be. And I would love to talk to a QB guy right now and talk about mechanical, what they're seeing in that. But I do think that you're seeing progress. And for people not watching it, not saying that they're seeing it is wild to me because you're slowly seeing these boxes being checked. And maybe it's not all at one time, but that's not how development works. That's just not how it happens. You're not like, here's the 5 things you need to fix. And then in one day, everything's fixed and it looks good in one game. It's a learning process each game. So Ben Johnson's going to take this last game and be like, Caleb, you did so many good things in this. Now let's start. If the flat is an issue or if some of those intermediate midfield stuff's an issue, now let's get this because you've got the deep ball down. You've got the when to take off. You're not taking these big sacks. There was one sack he took that you probably didn't want him to in this last game, holding the ball a little long. But that used to happen 7 times a game. And so I do think that there's so much progress being made and it's really fun to watch. I think the one thing you want to see now is him do that against a good defense because it has felt like, Dallas defense is really bad. Bengals defense is really bad. And those are the games where you feel like he really lights it up. And then the defenses that are a little more difficult when you talk about the Lions or when you talk about the Vikings, there's a little bit more struggles in there. So coming up, looking at the schedule ahead, some of those more difficult defenses, which you have you have the Packers twice again, and then the Lions and then the Vikings again. So those are all defenses that are going to know that to blitz him and do a lot of creative, crazy things and try and get his mind a little swirly because they want to get him off his mark. And that's when I really want to see some of those things shine for Caleb.
Well, he's got one more easy one, it looks like, potentially in front of him. We'll take our last break here. We'll talk about the Giants game coming up this weekend. Chance for the Bears to get another win on the season, make it, would it be 6 of their last 7 they would have won at this point in the season. Wow. So we'll get to that next year on the Bears Squad Show. All right, so the Giants game coming up this weekend. Bears are 3.5-point favorites. The Giants gave up 34 points last week to the 49ers, 38 points to the Eagles the week before, and 33 points in one quarter to the Denver Broncos the week before that. It's still in one quarter. One of those bizarre games of the season. So another opportunity for the offense and for the defense, I think, to shine in this game. You got, Cam Scatterboo is out. Malik Neighbors is out. So you got Jackson Dart, who doesn't slide. He's a wild watch. He's fun to watch. Like he's going to get a big play or two on the Bears this weekend for sure, but he's also going to give you the opportunity to get takeaways. So look, it's hard not to, you don't want to feel overconfident as a Bears fan. I think we've all learned our lessons from that in the past, but I do look at this weekend and say that number seems light to me. What does Vegas know that I don't know? But I fully expect the Bears to get a win this weekend against the Giants.
Yeah, this one will be interesting. Defensively, when you're talking about some of the things they can do up front, it can be dangerous. Obviously, when you're talking about a Dexter Lawrence, and he's just a beast in himself. And then Thibodeau, who obviously was another name too that was circulating for trades that didn't happen. Roy Robertson Harris, that's a familiar name for the Bears, but he's moved around so much when it comes to sometimes playing inside, sometimes playing outside. He's better at certain things, so we'll see how the Giants really use him. But on that side, I think that you're talking about there's still some things to be concerned about. You're not going up against a Max Crosby or a Trey Hendrickson. And so and Trey Hendrickson was out last week, thank goodness. But some of those things, you still worry about a Dexter getting up the middle. And I think that's when we have to start seeing this line also, because I do think early on in the season, when you played the Vikings and the Lions, this offensive line didn't look very good. So now I think we'll get to some of these tests to really see how much the line's improved, or has it been just hidden because they're playing teams that really don't have a whole lot up front. So that is one thing that I'm kind of fascinated to see, is how this line handles some of these guys like a Dexter Lawrence and Thibodeau. But I also think when you're talking about offensively, this to me, and I said a few weeks ago that I was more scared about the Giants game than I was the Ravens game. I said that because of Cam Skattebo. They don't have Cam Skattebo now. Yeah. I think that to me massively changes their offense, because they were leaning on Skattebo so much to create a lot of things and kind of take pressure off of Jackson Dart. They're able to score points. That's one thing they can do. But I do, when I look at this, and I mean, Joe, you tell me if you feel different, but this is one of the more, when you just look at offensive weapons straight up, one of the easier if you're just looking on paper compared to what they've played this season.
Absolutely. I mean, like the difference in talent on the outside alone, I mean, T. Higgins was doing things this weekend that it's like, well, that's why everyone wanted to be a free agent, right? Because they wanted to see him go be a number one on a different team. And Joe Flacco's dicing you up for nearly 500 yards. And it's totally different. I mean, it's the amount of injuries they have. And, Tracy's a good running back for the Giants. Like, he was good last year, and he filled in nicely this weekend, that first game for Skattebo. Like, he can be a threat, but the talent drop off is significant in this one. Like, this is where, as you're trying to get healthier and your schedule takes it up a notch, like you should, like you're more equal versus the Giants than you were for sure against, the Bengals, against the Ravens, even, I would say, with Derrick Henry and Zay Flowers out there. Like, this is a game where, you should have that advantage still, with the rookie quarterback. And, this is where I think, we haven't really seen the Dennis Allen be able to take advantage of these moments yet, because you've played mostly veteran quarterbacks, and obviously didn't go great against Baltimore, but Huntley is a veteran in a way, Pro Bowler, don't forget.
Yeah. And very similar to Lamar. They didn't have to change their offense for him.
But you can I would assume here, like Dennis Allen has a huge advantage over just Jackson Dart being a rookie quarterback. So, I think it's you can handle this game with your beat up defense. That is really beat up. I mean, that's this game is, and I know most people view a must win game as only as this game means your season's over, but I do think when you look at the Bears' schedule this season, say, okay, if they're going to make the playoffs, you have to win this game. Like this is one where if you lose this game, the schedule you got coming up, it's really challenging the rest of the year. So this does kind of feel like a kind of a make or break game a little bit for the Bears' playoffs hopes.
Yeah, because Vikings, Steelers, Eagles, Packers, Browns, Packers, Niners, Lions. That's crazy. Brutal stretch. Yeah, even alone when you're talking about the end and facing the Packers twice and the Lions in that last 5 weeks, that's rough. But yeah, I think that when you're going through and you talk about Jamar Chase and T. Higgins and how they were able to handle that, and then even going back to, or just in general, the competition that they've had so far with wide receivers, I feel like healthy, that you're talking about a different story. But right now, with where the Bears are in health and their cornerback room, obviously that is going to be a big topic. So I feel like get past the Giants game, however it happens, you would love to dominate, but if you win that one and just get a W, and hopefully some guys start getting healthy in those couple of weeks after, then you're talking about a path to success that last 5 weeks. But if you lose this game, it almost, especially with the way the division's going right now, it's just, I mean, it's neck and neck right now, and then you're facing all of those teams after that. So it's going to be a tight race to the end, but the reason it could be a tight race is if you beat the Giants.
Yeah, I mean, it's also like the North is probably the best division in football, I would say. I mean, I think the NFC West, now that Kyler Gordon has been, I mean, not Kyler Gordon, Kyler Murray has been benched. It seems that he's hurt, but they also said they're going to stick with Jacoby Brissett anyways. Like, I think the Cardinals are a little bit, of a different team, it seems like, with him at QB. But this division it's a grind right now. I mean, if you look at the playoff standings, the Bears are the 8th seed. The team in front of them is the Lions at 5-3. So, and I said this last week with Lauren. I kind of view like this season, to me, it feels like the best thing the Bears can do if they want to make the playoffs is put them in a position to be like that game against the 49ers is you win that game, you're the 7th seed, they're the 8th seed. That feels like, to me, the Bears' best path to the playoffs, and you got to hold off J.J. McCarthy and the Vikings as well at this point too.
Yeah, which, I mean, I guess would be a fun ending if it goes your way, because you're talking about the way that first game went, starting your season to feeling like you were about to dominate the Vikings to ending up losing that game. If you could beat the Vikings and get into the postseason, and that's kind of like that path that happens, I feel like that, again, when we talk about things that wouldn't happen in the past to the Bears, that feels like the Bears this year. Not saying it will happen, but there's more of a chance this year than there has been in over 10 years. Or I guess absolutely. 2018.
I know it's been a long time. I mean, 2018 still, like, they throw all these numbers out there, and it's like their first time they're at 5-3 since 2018. I'm like, gosh, that's insane. 3 quarterbacks ago at this point. Like, it's crazy to think that like it's taken this long. But I'm with you. This season, it feels. I know already at this point, the midway point through the season, I know they got the right coach. I'm pretty confident that I'm still there with Caleb Williams. Like, it's been a little more down this year than I would have hoped, but I think you still have your guy at quarterback pretty clearly. But you got your coach. Like, that's ultimately what matters going forward for me. So I feel good. Halfway through the season, it's crazy.
I know, it's wild. And I'm a huge Ben Johnson fan, and I think every week it gets better for me. I will say, not this last week, but the week before was probably my least favorite Ben Johnson play calling. But that's fine, because I think every other week he's done things where I'm like, this is incredible. This is, and just on and off the field, when you watch the way that he is with the players, you can see how much the players respect him, just by the way they interact on the sideline in certain moments. And so I do think it's fun, and I'm definitely still on the I think Caleb can be the guy. And the reason I'm even a little more probably accepting than I wanted to be coming in this season is because I'm seeing how crazy the Ben Johnson offense is. And you go back, and I keep seeing the number comparison of what Jared Goff did in those first 6-7 weeks under his offense. And it's very similar numbers. And Jared Goff was in year 7. Like, we're talking about Caleb Williams and, under 30 games in the NFL. And so if he's already starting to grasp this offense, and we'll see more, like I said, against some of these better defenses, but if he plays like he has played in the first half of the season and moments against some of these better defenses, and you see him do fourth quarter things like he's done, you're like, okay, I'm pretty confident this guy can continue to develop.
All right. What's your got a prediction for this weekend? Got a win coming?
Yeah, I want to say a win. I don't know score wise. I feel like this is one of those games where I feel like it could end up being a little higher scoring, just because obviously the Bears defense being so beat up. And then the Giants, I think, to your point, Jackson Dart does some wild things. He has an arm. He can get the ball downfield. The Bears haven't done good against those explosive plays. So I could see it being a little higher, maybe like a 27-20 Bears.
Mm-hmm. That's exactly what I was thinking. 27-20. So we're on the same page. All right. Taylor, besides here with us on Tuesday nights most weeks on the Bears Squad Show, where can the people find you?
Yeah, you can find me at Taydol1010XL on Twitter. You can also, if you go to YouTube, search Making Monsters or look for Second City Gridiron, you'll find my podcast there. So lots of good stuff. I do our preview shows for that. But if you are also looking for the Kyle Monangai episode, there's some really good things from his running back coach from Rutgers on there. And I did it a while ago, so it was pre him playing. But if you just want to get to know the person, Kyle Monangai, a little bit better, I did do a podcast with him a while ago, so you can go search for that one too.
I'm Joe George. You can catch me here weeknights and on post-game shows, but also for the next 5 days, I'll be filling in for Lauren Cox right here on the Locked On Bears YouTube channel. So I'll be with you guys tomorrow morning as well. Thank you all for watching. We'll talk to you on Sunday after the Bears and Giants game. Have a good one. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Peace.